Greetings, greetings, sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. This is Body-Culinary, aka Kwasa Peaceful Eating, and I'm up early taking advantage of the wee, quiet hours of the early day, my favorite time of day. Obviously, some other people are up getting into whatever they're getting into. They always come on this page that are the first to click on. I see you. In any event, I wanted to come on this early day as I'm moving around quietly, just to just share some of my thoughts in the wee hours. And the thought that I was contemplating, or that I've been contemplating as I'm moving around this early day, is just an observation, just one woman's observation and perspective. Anything that I say here is not necessarily the truth. You're always welcome to comment respectfully in the comment section. We can always have a respectful dialogue, but just as one woman's perspective. So I've been contemplating that we've been duped out of our beauty. And what I mean by beauty, I don't just mean physical, although that's connected to it. We've been duped out of our beauty, women in particular, and this can also relate in a sense to men. When I'm saying beauty, I mean our juiciness, our vitality, our life force. Also connected with that is inspiration, motivation. Kind of like if you think of when you're a young girl and you're so full of creativity, you want to color, you want to draw, you want to jump rope, you want to swim, you want to run outside, you want to play, you want to create, you want to make cakes, you want to help. It's like it's a juiciness, it's a freshness, it's a vitality. And somewhere around when we start engaging in school, and before there was even Instagram, once we start getting socialized and all the comparison comes in, and we're looking at other people, and then we get other thoughts, and we hear the conversations, and even from a young age, the cliques start, and a lot of the behaviors and the behavior patterns that we're mimicking of the adults, we get tricked into some behaviors that there's no way we could have any idea of the long-term effects on our mental and emotional well-being. That's not even in our vocabulary, as young people, as children, as young girls, but that's not even on our radar. And so let's say the cattiness and excluding other people out of the group, the teasing of our appearance or each other's appearance, young children that may not be very cognizant of hygiene, the teasing, which can be very torturous for a young person, a young human being. And then as it progresses from primary school into junior high school, we get even more cliquishness, in addition to the pressure from instructors where you're invalidated if you don't get a score on a test. And by the same token, you're not acknowledged for your different learning intelligences, right? You're not encouraged to, maybe in alternative schools now, you're starting to hear some of that conversation, but you're not really encouraged to work in teams so that the person that's more artistically endowed, and the person that's more of a builder, and a person that's more naturally good with science, and a person that's good with math, we're not, it's not modeled in school to collaborate at an early age. Any of the educators or the forward thinkers that are doing that are way ahead of the game, and it's necessary for human beings to progress. So from a young age, you're getting messages of, if you don't fit into a certain box, or you don't perform in a certain way, you're less valuable. It takes a tremendous toll on our esteem, because when these things are pointed out to you, they stay in your memory well into adulthood. What people told you they felt about you, or who you are, what your identity is, and so feeling unworthy, unseen. I think these can be some of the very beginnings of, a setup for self-medication and self-sabotaging behaviors in order to be seen for attention and for validation. All human beings want to be acknowledged and heard and seen. And so this can even set the tone for quote unquote acting out in order to be seen. And I would even say at some point, anger that sets in when it seems like one group of children or one child is acknowledged and another is not. So somehow in our psyche or something in our behavior that's being modeled is when we're angry and irritated to turn around and take that frustration and anger and turn it in on ourselves and to medicate ourselves. With women in particular, and I would say it's men too, but slightly different flavors. And now all of these different things are fluid. The different ways we medicate and zone out are fluid, So we talk about all this expression, but it's interesting. I don't hear acknowledgement of how much of our trauma is fluid in all the different ways that it is expressed. I hear more of a bonding on trauma and lending an ear to trauma more than seeking to understand it, to unpack it, and to somehow come to a point of like being intent on unpacking in order to get about the business of seeing new possibilities for ourselves, right? Because this is the only life that we have. So a lot of the different behaviors, like if you were to work backwards, like to engineer it backwards, we can find and we can start to see the pattern of how not feeling seen, not feeling validated, and compacted onto that being the object of projection, right? For frustrated adults around us who may be violating many children. We know that's very common in human behavior now. People that feel powerless will usually seek to exert their power over folks who are defenseless, who are easy prey, and quite often that is small children for anger or misuse, or not reintroducing intimate acts that children are not prepared for. All of these things set the tone for. I don't think we can identify it as a rage as a child. I don't know that even as children we have those emotions, but there are a lot of things as we grow, as we mature, and we can articulate these different things and how it's affecting us, it does likely turn into a rage. But all of these different things not being put into proper perspective, we wind up turning in on ourselves. And many of us as young people, especially in the teens and the 20s, as we get older, we start to see the contradictions of adults around us. In rebellion, we are encouraged to put ourselves in harm's way, which is interesting because we're encouraged to put ourselves in harm's way for profit, or we're exploited by predators or those that feel powerless. And then at the same time, we're shamed. So that's like a big double, if not a triple whammy. And so all of that putting ourselves in harm's way, and right now it's at such a fever pitch. If we look at popular culture, so again, I'm not demonizing the natural tendencies of bonding and intimacy amongst human beings, but we can see something is missing. Just the very nature that we're in ignorance at a young age. We're taking on a lot of concepts and acting out with no clue as to the long-term effects on our emotional and our mental well-being, right? And the messages are that, there are no consequences, do whatever you want, but we can also see that a lot of the population is like we're being encouraged to be legal drug addicts, right? And so much outside substances and chemical substances are being encouraged, but what's not being encouraged is discernment, when it comes to food, people, character, whether that's political, religious, parents, whatever, to be discerning about character and who we're opening our psyche to. That's not encouraged, but we're encouraged to just medicate everything. And their laboratories constantly coming up with more things to medicate things that really can't take the place of some type of human interaction or human interaction, right? And reflectiveness, right? Where in our younger years, we're not so reflective. And even in us being naturally reflective, it is often exploited by adults that are more savvy than us. And so it just sets the stage for a lifetime of putting ourselves in harm's way, where it just becomes like second nature to put ourselves in harm's way. We get a high five for it. We do it in groups to the point where you're considered the odd one out if you don't choose to put your stomach, your skin, your precious reproductive organs, let alone your mental health and emotional health. Now, dig it. It's common now. People say, don't feel ashamed. We don't want to shame anyone for taking all these medications to chemically alter the chemicals in your brain. But we're not considering that emotional and mental distress are altering you chemically. So who has the incentive to get to the root of that? And I would dare say that that's only likely to be you. So that may seem a little long-winded. I hope this is making sense, what it is that I'm saying. We're encouraged to even use other people and substances to pacify and soothe ourselves. Even so-called meditation is being exploited, where meditation has been framed as something very disjointed and disconnected, where you just sit and meditate. And even, the more the better, just like more supplements. You sit for hours and hours for peace, and then you get up and maybe perhaps do the same things. But then just like we can ego trip off of the label vegan or ego trip off of what our religion is, we can ego trip off of I meditate for an hour, 2 hours. But we can see that the human condition, a large part of the human condition is continually devolving. We have more information now about what's going on with us chemically and what's going on with us, how much sun we need and what our needs are and resources. But there's still somehow a disconnect. So I would dare say we have been duped into behaviors that are very exploitive, right, of our natural human desires and tendencies. And unfortunately, it's not until we have put ourselves in not only in harm's way, but have long-reaching effects on our mental and emotional being, and until the point where many of us become bitter and jaded. And more bitter and jaded usually means we're going to continue to put ourselves in harm's way and stuff ourselves with substances masquerading as food and numb out with different types of substances. So it's like a cycle. It's a cycle and it's a pattern. And it's one of the reasons why I encourage quiet, planting a garden, so that we can think and process these things, because a lot of our own processing, a lot of our own divine innate onboard intelligence is compromised by the noise of right and wrong from religion. We can see, obviously, good majority of the folks that have these uniforms and these costumes on are just as flawed and traumatized, and as covered up as other human beings. So I just observe it is in our best interest to have our mental and emotional well-being at the forefront. It's connected to what we're consuming, our food, every other thing we're consuming in our ears, relationships that we're consuming, and the state of mind, the mentality. I think the mentality, the state of mind, right? The energy. Where's your state of mind when you're consuming? Are you angry? Are you upset? Are you agitated? Are you anxious while we're eating? Right? It's It's not deep, but it's more like an awareness. We're not really encouraged to be aware, contrary, maybe perhaps the popular belief. And maybe perhaps many of us don't want the responsibility, right? We may perhaps freak out at the idea of being fully aware because it's responsibility that comes with an awareness of the consequences of everything that you're doing, of everything that you're listening to, of every person that you open your orifices and your sacred reproductive organs to. There's a responsibility that comes with awareness. So it would appear to me, because we start out as small, innocent children, that we've been duped out of our juiciness, out of our beauty, out of our open inquisitiveness. We've kind of been duped out of it and pushed in with the rest of the sheep into certain orchestrated behaviors for a profit. And this is not to sound heavy, because sometimes just contemplating what it is we're really dealing with, I think, can really serve us, rather than just putting more spirulina and wheatgrass and more fasts, per se, on top of it, without getting to the root of our behaviors. And in getting to the root, there's an acceptance and there's an acknowledgement of and enacting responsibility, right, for all that we're consuming. So just those early morning meanderings and contemplation. So it's going to take a few moments to get into some deep breathing and relaxation. So breathing in and out through your nose with your shoulder down, so you have a lot of space between your shoulder and your ear. If you have issues with your back, you can sit upright in a chair with your pelvis tilted upwards so you're not pinching your lower back, and gently drawing your belly button into your spine. Your eyes can be closed or open. So you're welcome to take a moment or two to ask a question of your own divine, onboard, innate intelligence. If perhaps there's something that you're working on or working through, whether that be advice or wondering which course of action to take, you can take a moment to just ask a question of your own onboard intelligence and allow the answer or the intelligence, the internal communication, to come up for you at some point during the day. You're also welcome to write a few words or sentences in your journal. These are practices that are so simple that we have access to, that don't cost you any money, that done over time can really do a whole lot, can be tremendous in supporting literal, when I say peace, I mean relaxation in a very practical sense, and you being grounded, and us perhaps not being so triggered by all the different things that are competing for our attention very loudly, very aggressively, competing for our attention, and sometimes we don't have the ability to shut it off. So I invite you also to be very, as much as you can, to have healthy curiosity and be mindful about what we are consuming, and at least question if what you're consuming through these screens, if it could perhaps be affecting your decision making, if it could be affecting your blood chemistry, if it could be affecting your mood, if it can be subconsciously driving you to a space of anxiety and affecting you eating mindlessly. So those are some of the contemplations this early day. You're welcome to play this back perhaps if you need to before you eat in the afternoon, just to ground you and to give you some support in terms of relaxation and being grounded. You're welcome also perhaps to, before you go to bed, to replay this either while you're decluttering, prepping some vegetables in the garden, or maybe an hour and a half before you go to rest, so you can start to shift the vibration, right, in your mentality before you go to rest. So your brain is not so on, going for outward activity, even though your eyes are closed when you go to rest. The mind can still be very active. The more we can start to tone down and quiet down, that actually can help your body be more relaxed and not on edge, so that it can go in and do the repair work and make use of all of those beautiful, healthy foods that you're putting in. So with that being said, I invite you all to create a great day on purpose, just because you said so, being very intentional about protecting your peace of mind, your internal quiet. I invite you to cultivate a taste for a craving for quiet, because it can go a great way to serve you. All right. See you soon.